Happy Sunday, everybody, except for Richard Betts. Happy Monday, Richard. And happy Monday to John Agg when he wakes up. It's so great to see you all here on Logik Live. It is Sunday. It is actually a rainy, miserable day here in the Hudson Valley. But the warmth and love that I'm getting from everyone I see in the chat is really all that I need to make the sunshine inside. I see that Mr. Apollo 222 is here, and there is Jeff Kyle. I hope the levels are good. Valentine, it's so great to see you always, man. Sibylla is here. Jan is here. David Kreitz is here. Thank you, David Kreitz, for catching my mistake with the patrons link. And I'm just happy to be here. We're going to have a great show today. We've got Flame 2025 Part 2 with our friend Stephane Labrie. And we're going to get that started in just a second. But first, I went full Jeff Kyle. Jeff, you inspired me last week. I went and plugged in the Stream Deck and hooked it up to Ecamm here. And so you all are and this is also running on like I rewired this is my first show that I'm running after NAB. And so I brought one of my machines out to NAB. I've been rewiring everything here at the Logik Live studio. And so a couple things are amazing to me. The first is just the sheer number of things you don't realize you have installed on a computer till you kind of like reformat it and start over. And so this week has really just been like an endless like cycle of Homer Simpson-esque like, and dough because I didn't have something installed or I didn't give macOS permission or whatever. And then when I started this journey with Logik Live back in 2020, I was running off an old MacBook Pro, and I didn't own any DisplayPort cables. I mean, this is just something I'm sharing, because I'm in like a sharing mood. I have bags of DisplayPort cables, right? This is actually the HDMI to DisplayPort cables. But anyway, I'm just having a moment here, just enjoying everything that is Logik Live. But I should probably get started. Thank you for joining us here on Sunday. My name is Andy. We're going to go, Jeff, I hope these buttons work. We're going to go to the slideshow. Jeff told me that you can, what really convinced me to plug the Stream Deck back in was Jeff was like, did you know that you can program buttons on the Stream Deck to run the slideshow? And like, oh my God, you don't have to move windows out of the way? I sound like one of my grandparents. Anyway, want to let everybody in Logik Land know that we have a new offer from our friends at Looper. Looper is a live collaboration for video pros. If you need to stream a session with clients, I highly recommend trying out Looper. We had Alex from Looper on Logik Live. We also had him in Vegas at NAB last year. And we are doing, they're doing a new month. You get a 1 month plus plan for free for new users by just going to tinyurl.com/looper-logic. I'll make sure that that's in the description in YouTube because that is a mouthful. Speaking of awesome things, Boris Effects, my friends. If you're in the market for anything that Boris makes and you didn't grab their spring sale, which they had around NAB time, be sure to use one of our Logik.tv affiliate links to save yourself 15% on everything that they make from Boris Land. You can find all the links at Logik.tv/Boris Effects, or I believe they're in the YouTube description. If not, they will be. While you're checking things out on the internets, I would highly recommend checking out the Logik merch store. As I like to say, you can make your best while looking your best. And if there's a flame artist in your life who has a birthday coming up, or as they say on LinkedIn, a work anniversary, there's really no better way to say, I really appreciate you than some branded Logik merch. That's what my mother always said anyway. And she never told a lie. I want to thank all of our friends at Patreon, all of our patrons whose generosity make this possible. We could not do what we do here at Logik without your support. And we've been saying that for almost 4 years. So thank you very much. These are our current patrons. I think we're up to 158 patrons. So thank you very much, patrons, for making all of this possible. If you'd like to support what we're doing here at Logik for as little as $5 a month, get yourself a challenge coin and access to our show after the show, where we have a special Q&A with our guests. You can sign up for that at patreon.com/LogikTV. And finally, or not finally, let's talk about Logik Academy Pro. This is our sister site that we've developed that focuses on education and training. Learn, Connect, Advance with Autodesk Flame at logicacademypro.com. We have all kinds of courses. I want to thank Randy McEntee for pouring his heart and soul. Oh, I see him there. I see him. Are those DisplayPort 2.1? I wouldn't know any others, Randy. Those are the only ones I buy. The best. Just like you, my friend. You're the best. Thank you for pouring your heart and soul into Logik Academy Pro. And please check it out when you have a chance at logicacademypro.com. I am so excited about this. I'm leaving tomorrow on a jet plane. Go ahead. Try not to sing the song there, Jan. To head over to Madrid to be a part of the Flame User Group, the Iberia Flame User Group, on May 8th. I'm so excited to go and see everybody in person that really, with the exception of Gabriel Garrido, I've only ever met online and through Logik. So I'm going to be presenting along with Dave Gomez, our good friend Fred Warren, and Antonio to just go over a whole bunch of stuff. This is an all-day affair. Jeff, this is a barbecue for the opportunity of networking with other people. It's not necessarily like a place to get your networking questions answered. Although I'm sure that it is also a place to get your networking questions answered. But stay tuned for pictures and all kinds of things. Again, super excited for this. And I want to thank our friends at Tangram Solutions for making this possible. We'd be nothing without the resellers. All right, my friends, we are here, believe it or not, to talk about Flame 2025. We had Fred Warren on last week. And, I'm very excited today. We had a great show last week with Jeff and with Fred. I'm very excited today for our guest, who's the other half of the dynamic duo that does Flame. So without further delay or further ado, I give you the king of codecs, the duke of drivers, the sultan of safe harbors, the vicomte of versioning, the prince of PowerPoint, and my personal Kizatz Haderach of QR codes. Ladies and gentlemen, the funniest man in software development, and I hope I'm not giving this away too soon, the next Prime Minister of Canada, the lovely and the talented Stephane Labrie. Stephane, welcome back to Logik Live.
Thank you.
And congratulations. Oh, look at that. You've even got a Logik coin. Oh. That's our man. Thank you so much, Stephane. Thank you for coming back to Logik Live. It's good to see you again.
Thank you very much. Not Prime Minister of Canada, but King of Canada. It's a bit over than Prime Minister, because anyway, if I can. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Your Eminence, it's very nice to see you. Thank you for coming back to Logik Live, and congratulations on another great NAB and the 2025 release.
Well, thank you, guys. I mean, many of you were at NAB with us this year, so thanks for all the people who traveled the world. So not only from the various United States, but also from European countries and even Japan. I mean, we had people coming from very far.
Japan, people from Korea.
Friends from Germany, from France. I mean, very often we see the European people at IBC, but I mean, many of you decided to come see us at NAB to see the circus. And then that's good. So thank you very much. We had great... So Fred and myself were presenting at Dell and HP, so many of you came to see the Dell presentation at their theater, which is funny because at Dell, they have a magician at the booth. I don't know if you've noticed it, Andy. So that's every trade show, they have a magician. So the idea is they have a magician, so he shows a trick, and then to complete the trick, he brings people to the theater to make sure there's audience. But in our case, I mean, we had 20 Flame artists there cheering and popping and being super happy, cheerful for the presentation. So thank you. It was very fun to have you guys in the crowd.
Awesome. Well, let's get underway. I just want to remind everybody, if you have any questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat. And Stephane, I'm going to bring your screen up. Do you want to take us through Flame 2025?
Absolutely. We'll talk about the various technologies in Flame 2025, things that are quite in the background very often, but are good for you to know when you want to move to the new version, which you will see it's a quite straightforward upgrade if you are in the 2024 release stream, right? So let's start with something that I'm sure most of you knows about. Is the name change or the rebranding of ShotGrid, which is now Flow Production Tracking. So this is something we revealed at the end of March, in fact. So when you're going to start Flame 2025, you're going to see that in the user interface. But I mean, the workflow is the same, so don't be confused. Don't be. Flow is a new branding for an umbrella of products and services that we will disclose later. So I'll just show you one of our webpage if you want to know more about Flow. It's our Autodesk platform for M&E. So go see on autodesk.com if you want to know more detail about that. So we showed at NAB, in fact, so we talked about flow production tracking, but we also showed flow capture, which was Moxion in the past. So that's the new branding from camera to cloud workflows, right? So that's something we are working on for various services and product in MNE. Okay, so that will be straightforward to complete your workflow with ShotGrid flow production tracking with the Flame 2025. Before talking about what we are adding, I'm going to talk to you about what we are removing. And many of you who are still working with Lustre received a communication last month, since we are end of development Lustre. That means that we are stopping the development of the product. That doesn't mean the product will no longer work. I mean, you are able to use your subscription. You will be able to renew it based on your workflow. So, but the 2025.0 release is the last release of Lustre. So there won't be updates, like I just said, and starting with Flame 25.1 update for later this year, you're going to see the removal of the various tools related to Lustre, and also the user interface for creating projects. But still, if you use the 2025 product version of our application, you're going to be able to use Lustre with Flame. But that update one, I mean, we are removing these capabilities. As we have seen in the last 5 to 10 years, I mean, the landscape for finishing visual effects has seen consolidation in many workflow and pipelines. So I think we kind of let Lustre quite long in this slowly but surely, ramping down. One of the reasons that motivated, in fact, removing Lustre was that we are working on many technologies these days, which you will see in the future version of our application, and it would have been quite cost prohibitive, in fact, to have these things. So we felt that with all the tools you have, either the grading workflows you have in Flame or other products in the industry, well, you have probably the answers to help your pipelines being successful. So that's sad, of course, to remove a product, but still we are supporting you, Flame Lustre users. And you're going to be able to, like I said, renew your subscription in case you need to prolong the workflows with our products, right? Yes, rest in peace, like many are saying in the chat. Other feature that we're removing, and many of them might not even be in your pipeline, but still they were part of the application, so VTR support. So hopefully nobody of you is still capturing or using VTR for archiving. But the
there's always a
capabilities
guy,
are still,
Stephane.
there's always a guy, I know that.
There's always a guy.
Absolutely. And the 2025 release will still have these capabilities, and the next major release, meaning 2026, we will remove them, because again, we are working infrastructure things that will make that difficult to support these workflows.
That I don't want to step out of line here, but I believe that also does free up a hotkey. If you have VTR IO,
we already,
right?
in fact, took advantage of these keys in 2025, right? Because we knew that we would announce these things. So yes, you have more ways to map things on the keyboards or on your Stream Deck or whatever technology you use to map capabilities to extend our products. Many people are using the WarCap. Oh, go ahead, Andy.
I don't want to name names, but I said there's always a guy, right? There's always a guy. I'm not naming any names or anything like that. I'm just putting a comment over the screen right now. I'm not mentioning any names, but there is always a guy. Okay, I'm sorry, Stephane.
Absolutely. No.
I return the presentation back to you.
No, I mean, let's keep that interactive. So WarTap SDK is something you can use to extend, again, or automate our products. You can create content, project management, and so on. So around application, be aware that the Windows version, and I'm sure nobody uses that anymore, but still is no more available. So there's the WarTap SDK on Linux and Mac OS if you need to extend the product using these SDK API with our products. I see some comments in the chat about will there be more love for color grading toolset? Yes, they are something we are looking at in the future. I cannot talk about them today, but yes, there are things that we are looking at, of course. And no Flame on Windows, Randy. Or that would be Windows 3.1. So because
there's always a guy, right?
Yes, there's always a guy. But that's fine. This is a good question. Good. Let's talk about the various configuration things, because many of you are still not working with the Flame 25 release wants to know, what do I need to be able to deploy that in my studio? So you see it's quite straightforward. So for Linux, we still support Rocky Linux 8.5 and 8.7. We're adding Rocky Linux 9.3, which I'm going to talk in a minute. For macOS, we remove support for macOS 11, and now we have the three last operating systems, 12, 13, 14. So that should be enough for what you have to do. Hopefully, many of you are transitioning from the Intel-based Apple computers to Apple Silicon infrastructure. I would be curious if we could discuss on Logik the amount of people still on Intel, because with the technology available from on the Apple Silicon, I think you might be missing out if you are still using the old infrastructure. But anyways, this is something we can discuss on Logik. So if you are on Apple Silicon configuration, we strongly recommend macOS 13, because in macOS 12 we've seen with Flame some performance challenges, which has been fixed by Apple in macOS 13. But anyways, I'm sure everybody is now using macOS 14 because animated wallpaper is a thing these days. DKU 19 is part of the kit, so it upgrades the NVIDIA driver to the latest one, and the Z840 is no more a qualified configuration. And the P6000, as you can see on the screen, is the minimum GPU we support, which is a quite old GPU. So again, I would recommend to probably look at the RTX at that generation infrastructure if you want to have the real Flame experience, since we have since 2024.1 the move to Vulkan, so it creates a great infrastructure. But still, I mean, if you have a Z840 P6000 kit that could be used, even if not qualified, you can still install Flame on it if you want. I see many often when a workstation is no more qualified, I see larger studio take opportunity to use this workstation maybe to run Flame Assist or Flare, which might not have the same requirement as far as speed and performance from pipelines. Anyways, you have the ability to do whatever you want, but yes, be aware that the Z40 is no more part of the qualified configurations.
Stephane, just a question for you. So in that, is there ever a situation where, or a scenario where if you have a piece of hardware like that that's no longer supported, that there are features that are not supported? Or is it really just that just won't work? Or is it really just a performance issue at this point?
It depends. It depends of the feature. We will, since because it's a bit hard to say because we haven't qualified the workstation, we don't see very different behavior with the graphic driver and the card. So I mean, that's why it should be behaving. It's just a matter of when we add new capabilities, new workstation from vendors. Well, we say, well, the old one should probably be removed. That's why it's not qualified. But we don't restrict. When you install the application, we don't check, the given part number of the workstations. That's why you can install it. But if you were to call support and say, I have this issue, well, that could be complicated because we don't have these technologies anymore.
Gotcha. Thanks.
But it should be easy and fun. Anyways, Rocky 9.3 is the greatest operating system from Rocky. So of course it's a version 9. That means you need to do a full installation. There's no upgrade, and this is not us, but really how the way major release of operating system work on the Linux side, right? So that means you need to back up your infrastructure. You need to make sure everything is set so you can add a new system drive and then continue. So probably you want to do that when you have a new workstation instead of upgrading. Unless you have a strong requirement to upgrade to 9.3, I would probably stick to 8.7 for the existing configurations. So, of course, all the qualified workstations have been validated with Rocky 9.3, Flame family, Maya, flow production tracking are supported on this operating system. So that means your current workflow can be mimicked on 9.3. And many studios very often needs to be able to work with the previous generation of the application like 2024, but this is not something we qualify with a new operating system like version 9. So if you need to have on your workstation both 2024 and 2025, maybe you want to stick with Rocky Linux 8 dot something, right? One of the big push, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. There's a question in the chat that might be pertaining to this from Maury. wondering, is there an end of life on the calendar yet for Rocky 8?
Not yet. But of course, along the way, we will try, for major release to probably, try to simplify, because when we have to validate, you see, we have preserved 8.5 and 8.7 and added 9.3 for 2025. So you might expect in the future, maybe we might remove 8.5 and stay with 8.7, or maybe updates if there are security things that we need to do. But no, I would say that for next year, probably we might be getting still a mix of 8 and 9 in our offering. So I think not everybody is able, of course, to quickly move to another operating system. That's why we try to keep these. And like same thing for Mac OS, as you've seen, 12. I mean, we kind of have we have 3 OS, so that's why we can ensure that you guys are protected. You want to play with the feature without having to rebuild your workstation, every month of April. So that's why we there. So no calendar yet, but I foresee that next year we're still going to be supporting 8. So that would be good. So like I said, so if you need 2024 and 2025, you might want to stick with version 8 of the operating system. One of the there are 2 pushes, in fact, 2 reasons why we went to 9.3, so we have some technology that we're going to see in a minute that require Rocky Linux 9.3, but there's also very often studios will install more than Flame on their workstation. And if you follow the Nuke 15 from the Foundry is not supported on Red Hat Rocky Linux 8, so they jump to version 9 directly, so they skip version 8 after CentOS being end of life. So of course, since we want to protect this workflow, 9.3 was a good reason, of course, to move our products to. Okay, so when you will install 9.3, because not everybody will in the next week, but when you will do that, you'll see a great operating system. So if you know Rocky 8, well, I mean, it's quite similar. The user interface has been a bit, been modified, but nothing major. So you will find yourself. So if you don't know Rocky Linux, well, it's like a good mix of Mac OS and Windows being merged together into a secure environment where you have control on what you want to do, minus the virus of some operating system, right? And the over security of other operating systems. So you see a tour, you're going to be able to define your various configuration from the user interface. You don't need to do a shell. I mean, it's quite straightforward. You can use the various widgets to configure your data. You can also monitor, define your monitor, your display, your resolution, all these things from a standard user interface. So that's quite straightforward. And as you'll see when you will install Rocky 9.3. Most of you are using single user licensing, and with the great ability to log in, log out to your various workstation, remote, from the office, or even on the cloud. Large studios are still sometimes using the network licensing, and we release a new version supporting Rocky Linux 9. So get that from our website. There's a link on the screen if you want to follow it. You need this one so you can continue using your license server on the Rocky 9. For the ones of you who jump to the cloud workflows, we also have our base Amazon machine image, which is the operating system, the drivers, and the driver for security, of course, and the NVIDIA driver. So that is supported for the G4 and G5 instances. You will hear from AWS G6 instances, and I have a page here I'm going to show you. So just here. So these are the new graphic instances from AWS released in April. They have the latest and greatest L4 from NVIDIA, so with 24 gig of GPU, which is quite impressive. We don't support this configuration. This is something that will come later in the year because the graphic driver that we use for the release is not the same. So that's why we need to qualify a new driver. And from there, we're going to be able to announce the support for the G6 instance. So right now, it's G4 and G5 as it was previously supported with the 2024 release. That's good. So I was talking about new configuration that we qualified using requiring Rocky Linux 9.3. So we qualified the 3 latest and greatest AMD Threadripper Pro configuration that are quite similar from the various vendor we work with. So at HP, this is the Z6 G5 with the RTX 6000 Agile generation. that minimum config is really Rocky Linux 9.3, so that's why we moved there. And you can use either single or dual GPU configuration on this offering. There's a quick QR code on the page if you want to know more about this workstation. Great workstation. On the Dell side, they also have a similar configuration, which is the 7875, and that's the configuration that Fred was showing Flame on at NAB. So again, same RTX 6000 added generation, same single dual. So again, it depends to which vendor you are, already working with when you want to upgrade your technologies. And on the Lenovo side, well, there's a new workstation named the P8, which is a nice looking workstation, which also support the same configuration. So again, it all depends of what you want to do and other technologies that you want to work with. Is there any question on the side? I see action on
There
the...
are two.
yes.
There were two. One was from Tim Farrell was wondering, will 2024.2 run on Rocky Linux 8.9?
It might run, but this is not something that we qualified. So stick with 8.7 if you want to have the qualified configuration. Don't upgrade to 8.9. And if you were to upgrade, I would be curious to know why. Because very often what happens is the dot update on the Rocky Linux side are for security purposes more than features. And very often what we do, we add the security patches in the DKU. So that's why you should have everything you need when you have our qualified operating system. And I know some people sometimes want to have the latest and greatest, but that can cause a support nightmare because that's not the configuration we qualified. So if you have a problem, well, what is the root cause? Is it the operating system? Is it something between the software and the OS or some drivers? You see, so that these things can behave differently based on the event. That's why we qualify configuration. We give you the documentation so you can. But I would be curious why somebody would upgrade to 8.9. So
we'll see if Tim responds with that. I'll give you the answer. But in the meantime, Maury was wondering, for cloud users, is there an AMI for a full Flame install on AWS available, or does it still need a lot of work?
So I guess your question is, AMI including the Flame release on top of that, right? So this is not something that we do. We deploy only an AMI with the infrastructure, and on top of that, you install and you get your software from your account on Autodesk.com. I know many software system integrator, they package that to ease, in fact, the end user workflow. But from us, we deliver an AMI. And on top of that, you install the software you want, either the 2025 or the upcoming, let's say, service packs or applications. So we don't want to have one AMI per version, because as you might imagine, that could be, a lot of things to manage. So we give you the base AMI that contains all the infrastructure. And on top of that, you add the application, you add the services you need on top of that.
Cool. Thanks. Makes sense.
Thank you. Okay, so there was a conversation about laptop or mobile workstation on Logik some time ago, and this is something that we always been interested, because many of you going on set, you bring your MacBook Pro, you do your VFX supervision, you do some mock-up of shots or anyways, but we always had what about Linux on set, right? So, and we look at the various offering out there. We were not impressed until we discussed last year with HP, who was looking to bring to market the ZBook Fury G10, which is more than a laptop. It's a mobile workstation with Intel CPU, RTX 5000 Iberia generation. It's quite impressive configuration considering its form factor and how much it weighs. It fits in your backpack, just similar as a MacBook Pro, but it runs with the Rocky Linux 9.2. This is something we are testing right now, so we'll let you know when this workstation will be part of the system requirements and configured workstation. But I feel that it could be a good alternative to a MacBook Pro when you go on set, if you want to have multiple applications. So that gives you another option, so based on what you do. So we're talking really about a mobile workstation, because if you were to look at the micro site at HP about the ZBook Fury, you will see a lot of technologies. You will see you can have up to, there's NVIDIA graphic, as I said, up to 128 gig of RAM, up to 16 terabyte of NVMe storage. So that's kind of a good contender. And so don't lose your laptop, because it might be an expensive thing at the airport if you lose it. It comes with an HP Dreamcolor display. So I guess you get a great display to be able to work on great image on set or at your office, depending on the size of your office. And of course, they are targeting this laptop as a kind of 8K enabled workflow. So I was always 8K. What do you mean? And I was able to play in real time R3D 8K files in full resolution debugging. So I was impressed. So it's a nice offering. I brought one with me, so some of you guys had the chance to see it when I was at the HP booth. So it's a good thing to be able to have access to in case you need to go on set and you need that kind of workstation. So we'll let you know when it's going to be fully qualified, and that's going to be available on our system requirement page.
Cool. Always love options.
Yeah, absolutely. Having more options than less is better. So, but sometimes, again, if you have more options, so you have to take a decision on doing something, right? We talked about that on Logik some time ago, but I think it was a good thing to make sure that everybody is aware of in case you upgrade and you created some Python script with PySide user interface. So with Flame 2025, we updated many technologies. So one of the pieces we updated was the component for the user interface that you guys can use through Python, which is named PySide, and PySide is the cute Python extension. So that means you can create great UI within Flame for your various workflows. So one thing that we wanted to tell you is if you don't upgrade your script, well, they're not going to work with 2025. Of course, you want to fix them to work with 2025, but ideally you want them to also work with 2024. So, and to do so, we publish an article. And also we gave some snippet of code which allows you to put that in your script, and that way you're going to be able to test which version is being used and then execute the script while you're going to be working with Flame. So again, it's an infrastructure thing that you need to be aware of just before upgrading to the 2025 release, to not have issues with your automation or technology that you developed around our products. So be aware of that. Mac OS, and we were talking, Andy and myself, just before the show about he had to upgrade his Mac. So of course you need to install software. You need to make sure the security of the operating system are set correctly, and this is a pain, right? I mean, nobody like to start Flame and get the inability to browse storage or whatever. But I understand that Apple wants to protect you from malware, wants to protect you from software vendor who can mess with your computer, and they require end user authentication to make sure we are allowed as software vendor to touch your configuration. So many of you reported issues. So with the 2025 release, we now have a dialog, so we can detect which services are not enabled. And we're going to pop you a user interface like you can see on screen. So the first time you're going to install Flame 2025, since it's the first time you launch it, well, of course, you haven't probably after the installation enabled the various security options. So Flame will know about it and will let you press the modify button, which will show you the screen and will show you the various things that you need to turn on, because we can't turn them on by ourselves. It requires some configuration from your side, because you're going to have to enable the Flame, at least for the full disk access. You're going to get this dialog where you're going to have to log in, put your credential and your password, and we're going to restart Flame, and then you're going to be good. So thank you, Jan. It's very useful. Of course, the best thing would be that we configure that under hood and you never see that. But I understand Apple, why they do that. And at the end of the day, we want your workflow, environment, asset, security content to be protected, because there are many people out there who want to have a piece of your cake. They want to know your credit card number and so on. So we have to be, internet is not a safe place these days. So another thing that you get with Flame 2025. Many of you are getting a newer MacBook Pro, right? And then the MacBook Pro with the Pro display come with iframe rate, refresh rate at 120 Hz, and Flame doesn't cope well with that. So we have a dialog now that will tell you that you're instead, because in the past you would have seen playback challenges with our product. So we recommend you to stick with 60 Hz when you define your graphic refresh rate. Same thing on Linux with the NVIDIA settings. You're going to get that because newer display very often come at 120 Hz or more. So I see some question about when you uninstall. Okay, yes, absolutely. This is a very good question. If you install multiple builds of the application, you see a lot of services. This is not something we clean up afterwards. So we have a task for this, but we need to work with Apple because the back end of that thing is not very clear. So we'd like to be able to remove these things, but we want to be careful. So yes, very good comment, David, about that. That should be more clean after an uninstall, just to avoid confusion. And in our case, we install daily builds, meaning that every day I install one or more Flame builds on my Mac. So as you would imagine, we have a lot of services, which at the end, they don't bother me. But yes, I understand that it could be cleaner to make some cleanup there. Service Monitor, I'm sure many of you are aware of this technology because every time I come to a Logik, I plug it because it's a very good tool that should not only show you the state of the various components like Stone and Wire and all the infrastructure capabilities like WireTap Server, but also can be used to diagnostic your system in case of problems. So we have in the diagnostic tab various tests that we run, in fact, and we can disclose, in fact, I tell you what are the messages. So we come up with two things. So one related to service configurator. So then the workflow where you would be working with multiple workstation in your studio and you don't use multicast, which is why we have the service config, the .cfg. But we also have a way, in fact, to collect all the logs, which is very useful because very often you have logs related to Backburner, you have logs related to WireTap Server and the application. So that's why it's a good thing to have that directly into these diagnostics. So, and then you can read them because these are text files, and then you can see error, you can see warning, and then that can help sometimes debug your environment in case something happened. Let's say you lost power, your storage is not mounted or whatever. So that's something you can have a look at when you debug.
Great, Stephane. I didn't realize that that under diagnostics there was the like errors, warnings, last day or the last. I'm still old school enough where I go into a text editor and look at the log and try to parse that stuff out. So that's great. That I didn't know that was in there. That's great.
Yeah. John is asking why this is not part of the Flame product. So we felt that having it as a standalone tool sometimes is better because you can have somebody else. In fact, your sysadmin can log in and then can add the application instead of running Flame. And if you have a license problem, well, it could be good to have that outside of the application because license problem would mean you cannot start the application. So that's why it's good to have these standalone tool and standalone and sometimes command line tool to be able to debug if you don't have graphic. That could be interesting.
Mm-hmm. Sanan is saying here, it would be great to have a document about which component service does what, whether it's a help file or...
Well, the documentation contains parts where we explain the various WireTap server, WireTap SDK, and all these things, the WireTap gateway. So, but yes, I mean, I can point you, in fact, to these on Logik in the near future.
Cool.
But yes, troubleshooting. Yes. So, okay, good. So, okay. So we'll follow up on the questions on Logik. If you use Backburner, you are able to. Well, you were able in the past to sort the various jobs, but we've added the task sorting. So if you have a job with multiple tasks, now you are able to do that. So thank our dear friend Adam Lettery about that because he was the one who is a Backburner monitor power user, but also request and provide a lot of feedback. So yes, we have to.
Thank you, Alan.
We have to recognize when that kind of people bring, so much to the product. Centralized configuration. Fred touched a bit on that last week. So when we came up 2 years ago with the project server, which is a way to externalize the project data outside of Flame. We move a bit of the infrastructure outside of the workstation, and that was essential for the cloud workflow because cloud workflows you have the GPU enabled instances which cost money, right, compared to non-GPU configuration. And by doing so, we are able on the cloud to have ephemeral or Flame workstations. That means when you have a project server and at the center of your workflow, well, when you're done with your Flame session, maybe you don't need the Flame anymore. So then you can just remove it. That means you're not build anymore, and then you don't have to pay for a resource on the cloud. And when you're going to start to play with the cloud, you're going to understand that it's important to manage the costs and the usage of technology. So by externalizing the project data, so that means that I just have to redeploy, reconfigure a new Flame AMI. Boom, I start from scratch, and then I can connect to my remote project server. So that's one way, in fact, to start moving out data from the Flame workstation to somewhere else. With the centralized configuration, we are adding on top of that where you can store either on a shared location or another server the various presets that we're doing. So that is an effort where in the future you're going to be able to have all your creative and technical data outside of the workstation. And the moment you want to be upgrading your workstation, or if there's a problem with the workstation that you need to add a new flame, well, it would just be a matter of create a workstation, put the software on top, remote connect to the project server, and ensure that your paths are well defined in the sysconfig file, and then you are good to go. So, like I said earlier, if you had to upgrade from Rocky 8.7 to 9.3, well, you would have to back up, you would have to bring that back, reconfigure. Well, with that kind of workflow where we are aiming to in the future, you're going to be able to easily get rid of the workstation and ensure that all your important data is somewhere else in the central location. And you can back up this thing, you can bring it back to life in case of problem, and the workstation become ephemeral, which I think is an interesting workflow for many facilities. Even if you are a standalone flame artist in your studio or at home, well, it could be interesting to be able to delocalize this data somewhere else in case of backup. So if you move your laptop back and forth, sometimes a backup can get a problem, and you don't want your project data to be at risk in this context. So that's the sys config file that we added to the 2025 release. So you'll see straightforward. I mean, instead of doing symbolic link, you just put the right tab at the right place, and there you go.
Stephane, at this point, does that also include like the opt-Autodesk shared Python folder?
It includes everything part of shared. So as you can
great.
see in everything in shared is part of that. So color management, Python, and all this. So that's it.
Great.
So that's cool, because then it's centralize these things somewhere else. So and of course nobody often back up the system drive of the workstation. I have a script that does that on my system, but I mean it's easy to not do. And then when you lose content, or you by mistake you install something that breaks the operating system, well, you don't want to lose this data that you might have spent many days on. Project management and user. So Fred last week presented the user agnostic, so the ability to move your shortcuts around. So that's something that quite interesting. We had a discussion on Logik some time ago about the recovered media project. So as you might know, you start the application, you work in the application, and for a given reason, you lose power. So all the frame IDs for your rendering that haven't been completed go into a kind of lost and found. So they are part of the recovered project, but since nobody used this project, we decided to get rid of it. So, and in 2024, you would need to delete the project to be able to get the room on your storage. So this is something you won't have to do anymore with 2025, because first, we don't collect these frames anymore, and they're going to be automatically removed by your next application launch on the same volume, right? Or if you were to run manually Vic, so all these would be removed because there's no project anymore referencing these files. So think about the moment you spend on desktop painting 1,000 frame, and then you lose electricity. Well, these frame would not be saved to the metadata layer of the project. So these would become recoverable, but that means unreferenced. So that's story from the past. We are improving and making this data management things easier than ever. If you had ever look at the folder, thank you very much. Easy and fun. That's how it should be. If you ever look at the various folders of the Autodesk project, so there's a file named the project.db, which was used in the past, is no more used anymore. So the file has been deprecated. So it's still going to be on your system if you have 2024. But if you install on a fresh system, you're not going to see the file. And of course, it's not being used anymore. So don't panic with that. This is quite normal. And in the future, we'll explain to you the vision we have for a better project management in our products. So these are kind of the first steps to make that better. That's the new splash screen, as you have seen, if you install 2025. So there's no more user profile like we said last week. And of course, we kind of cleaned up many things by doing so. And in your operating system home, like Fred explained last week, well, you have all these settings that are safe. So that way, if you move two different stations in your facility, and you have centralized shared users where you're going to be able to log in and then get your presets or whatever. And of course, the ability, like for many freelancer, to be able to export and export your user profile or your user files, in fact, is a great ability, especially for freelancers when you have to move, or when you have your hotkeys configured, you want to use the setup application to do that. So again, it's ease of deployment and ease of workflow when you travel the world. Is there any interesting thing in the chat?
No, we're good.
That's good. Perfect. Preferences. Well, Fred went through that last week, but again, I would strongly recommend when you install 2025 to take half an hour just to look through the 4 environment for the preferences: the user, the project, the application version, and the system. Most of what you know are where you think they are, but still you want to make sure to grasp these before going into production. So it's always good to understand where is this thing when you look for something in emergency. So take some minutes to do that when you're going to upgrade to 2025. AVIO side, so straightforward. There's a new SDK drivers for AGA version 17. Version 17 has been done by AGA to simplify installation and also add support for the Kona X card. There's a new card that they released some weeks ago. So what's going to happen when you will install 2025 and the DKU? You're going to have the upgrade of the driver on your Linux box. If you're on Mac OS, you're going to have to install it by downloading that from the AGA website. This driver also has been qualified with Flame 2024.x, so that means your infrastructure for your AGA card is working. The Kona X card is not yet supported. We have some challenges, and that's going to come later this spring. So right now, don't buy a Kona X card if you have a workstation. I don't think you have a need for this in the short term, except if you have to build a new configuration with one of the HP, Dell, Lenovo workstation I presented earlier. So the Kona X is like the next generation of the Kona 4, Kona 5 generation of card, right? It's the PCI card that you have in your workstation. So Kona X, you're going to have to wait some weeks before we give you the get-go to get there. But at least the infrastructure is ready when we're going to be able to deploy that thing. On the Blackmagic side, we also are using the almost latest and greatest driver, because last week they released version 12.9, which we're going to qualify, but it doesn't contain much, so you can stick with the 12.8.1. So it's a minor update. For both Linux and Mac OS, you download the driver from the Blackmagic Design Support website, and then you can install that. If you have a Rocky Linux 9.3 configuration, Blackmagic hasn't qualified yet this configuration for their card. We have tested thoroughly to make sure everything was working, and we work with them we told them that everything is working, but they will do the qualification in the near future. I haven't seen that in 12.9, but I think they're gonna have a look at that in the near future. But if you use Blackmagic on 9.3, we haven't seen any problem monitoring NDI, SDI, or HDMI. The most exciting news, in fact, in this section to me is the NDI 6, which has been released at the beginning of April. We integrated NDI, Network Digital Interface, is an ability for you to, instead of using a hardware card, you can use IP videos outside of your Flame product. So that means in my facility, I can broadcast my signal to an NDI decoder, and that can allow me to not have an SDI wire between my Flame suite and a projection suite, right? But the problem in the past was that NDI on Linux and macOS was limited to 8-bit. And that's not great for what we do in Flame. We want to see high quality. We want to see great images being locally or remote. And we very, very closely work with NDI to bring, in fact, these capabilities to their Mac and Linux SDK. And this is what they've done with their version 6. So when you install 2025 release and you monitor NDI, you're going to be in 10-bit, so nothing has to be done. You need, of course, a device that can decode 10-bit. At NAB, I was at HP, and I was using a Birdog 4K 12G decoder, which is, in fact, support 10-bit. So make sure that the technology you use support 10-bit if you want to have great review from your customers or your remote customers. If you know NDI, you know that they have an ecosystem of technology, because they are camera, they are switcher, they are application that support NDI. And on NDI, the TV, they have a set of tools for Mac OS and Windows that allows you to configure your network, to also send secure link with NDI bridge, so you can be in New York and you can send a secure NDI link to Los Angeles for monitoring. So I know many of you who are doing freelancing need that kind of technologies. So go see NDI, the TV, for more information.
2 questions about NDI in the chat. First is from John Ag, wondering, will we ever see NDI working in parallel with the broadcast SDI output?
That would be nice. In fact, every time I go to this trade show, because going to NAB is presenting our products, meeting you guys, but also talking with different partners. And I always entertain, this idea that if I could have a card from one of the vendors we support that could have HDMI, SDI, and NDI on the same box. In fact, in a small form factor that I could use on my laptop, well, that could be great, right? So, and I'm sure I'm not alone with that kind. And your comment, in fact, it says that right now, you define either AGA, Blackmagic, or NDI. What I do at home, in fact, is because I have different gears, but yes, I use my bird dog, in fact, to be able to monitor image and sound, and then at the same time I can monitor. Plus, I can send my signal through my.
Oh, sure, yeah, that works.
You can do that. So
that's
works. Why they have different options depending of your requirements. But yes, having a card that does everything would be nice. So let's see what the vendors will do in the futures. But yes, we are entertaining that kind of technology to be available. But if you are customers of AGA or Blackmagic Design, I guess you could also ask them, because asking for virtual requests is not only us, but you can also do that to other vendors, right? They have, I'm sure, the list of to-do things that they want to do. Audio monitoring and NDI, I'm not aware of problem. Are we talking about the amount of tracks? Are we talking about the quality? I mean, of course, we can follow up on Logik if you want, but it could be interesting to know better about the issues you have.
Yeah, I wonder if that's speaking to like, if you have your audio and video set out to NDI, you'd need some piece of hardware, a decoder or something, in order to be able to then plug speakers into that to monitor, or headphones. So maybe that's
probably exactly. Okay, good. Let's talk about. Oh,
that's all right. The chat is working its magic.
Yeah.
The community is doing its thing.
Fantastic. So very good. Color management, because we all need to work with color managed content. So you're going to see that more and more, because we have the chance in Flame to work with production houses that have big equipment, like the Arri, the Sony, and all these cameras. But you're going to see this year more and more mobile cinematography coming to your workstation. And as you all remember, last fall, Apple released, in fact, the iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max with ProRes recording, USB-C drive connection to your phone, but also Apple Log, which is a game changer for mobile production, because that means it brings, in fact, the content in a more professional aspect of it. And this is something we support in Flame 2025. We added support for Apple Log, meaning that you're going to be able to bring the content from your phone into your color managed environment, connected that to ACES workflows and so on within the application. You have all these color transform. So that's for the color management aspect of it, but also there's a media import aspect of that thing. So you are able to import the QuickTime files, ProRes, from Apple native camera or the Blackmagic design camera. And if you have an iPhone, I strongly recommend you to install the Blackmagic free camera application. This is a good application. It records, very good files with not various frame rate, but legal frame rate. You have also access to the various color management features. You can work in HDR, so that's great. So bring that to your Flame product, and you're going to be able to see these files, go in Media Hub, and get the automatic detection when you import these files. So it's going to be automagic if you use from file or rule. So as expected, it should be easy and fun. So that's part. And I'm sure many of you will see more and more iPhone content into your finishing suite. Of course, we also work with the big camera vendors like Sony, which announced last fall the Burano camera and released that just before NAB. So that's the new 8.6K camera. So I know many of you like to do post-production in 8K and probably more, because other camera vendors are talking about 12K and maybe more.
I was going to say the only thing better than 8K is 8.6K.
Absolutely, and this is what you're going to get with the Burano.
Yeah.
The Burano record in XOCN LT, and if you remember in the past with the Venice and the Venice 2, we support XOCN LT, but you really need to use 2025 for the file from Burano because we had to change some infrastructure with Sony SDK, so if Burano file will only be available in 2025 and up. And from what I've seen in the press, you're going to see more and more content coming to your finishing suite. So if you're in 2024, work on your strategy to upgrade to 2025 if you want to be able to decode their files. That's super important. I said exactly. I said easy and fun and color management in the same sentence, but I use a dot somewhere, I'm sure. Red also came up with a new camera, so the V-Raptor X, which has a global shutter, and we all love global shutter because nobody likes jello effects, and when we need to fix jello effects in post, it's not fun. So yes, they have a new camera. So we closely work with them because they introduced the support of this camera in the 8.5 SDK release some weeks ago. And as you know us, we like to test the technology from our partners, and we found a bug, which we reported them, and they gently, release an SDK for us, 851. Not only for us, because every vendor can integrate 851. So we kind of took this as this is our contribution
It's
to
their,
the
yeah, it's their
M&E
version
industry.
of the QFE. I get
Absolutely, exactly. So it's important, in fact, for
You know,
you guys. So we do this validation before they get into production. Small thing, but OpenEXR 3.2.1 is the latest and greatest version of the OpenEXR library. So you won't see any difference in the application. One good thing with OpenEXR 3.2 is the Academy Software Foundation, which is behind OpenEXR, and SMT is working closely with all the camera vendors like Sony, Arri, Red, which have applications that create from their raw content OpenEXR, and we are working on standardizing the naming convention of the metadata in the file. So I'm sure if you ever opened an OpenEXR transcoded from raw media, you might have seen Arri, Sony raw representation of a focal length or any other camera related data. So we are working on having a way in the industry so we have a naming convention that makes sense. So software vendor like us will be able in the future to support metadata in a way that it will be, again, easy and fun for end user instead of writing lookup tables between vendors so we can plug, let's say, a focal length into a tool. Well, the camera vendor will write the data in a standardized way because SMT is in the party. So good thing. So you won't see that, in the near future on our side, but be aware that the industry is working on these to simplify post-production and finishing. BLG for Flame. So many of you who are using Baselight in their facility use BLG for Flame, which allows you to move metadata instead of rendering, grading decision multiple times because your customer is changing his mind about the look, which impact your VFX. Well, you can bring BLG, which is a PyBox tool in Flame, and you can pre-visualize the grade. They release their version 6, and we qualified that with Rocky 9.3 and macOS, of course. So you should be good to go. The installation of V6 will detect the new location for the PyBox because, as we said earlier, we made a big cleanup in the way we manage setups and presets. So we work closely with them to make sure they install based on the version you have. So with version 6 of BLG for Flame, they will install in the 2024 or the 2025 right folder convention the plugin. So you can download that from the Filmlight website if you need that into your workflow. Tangent panels. This is something I talked to you, I think, in I don't remember which Logik event, but the Tangent Hub, which is installed by Flame on Linux, and you can download that from Tangent website on macOS, as what we call the Warp Engine. The Warp Engine allows you to map, in fact, on your control surface, any button in the user interface because they use coordinate. So if you want to map, let's say, a button we haven't mapped in our product, so you could with the Warp Engine, but they have added a way to record script. So that means you can create macros. So you could say, while I am in Flame, I have a button that would press button 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you can map that to a control mapping. So not really something that you would see inside Flame, but you would be able to interact with Flame with the Warp Engine. So again, it's for the one of you who are either using Stream Deck because you want to extend the product, or a control panel because you want to do things with this control panel. So this is another trick you have in your back pocket. Timeline and enhancement. Last week, Fred was not able to go through, in fact, all the things because 2025 release contained a lot of new capabilities. So I'm going to show you the timeline enhancements we have done in the 2025, and some batch enhancements also that we've done. So let's get out of the slideshow and let's have a look at some timeline enhancement. Unless there are questions about the thing I've just shown, I think the chat is under control.
No, I think so far so good.
Very good. And on timing wise, are we good? Because I see it's 1 to 2, the 3. Are we good there on timing? Yes,
we're good.
Okay, good. Okay, good. So okay,
we'll have to bump local news. They're going to have to
that's fine.
come into
that's
that.
Fine.
Yeah, so we're fine.
So I'm just going to go into Media Hub. So here I have 3 AF files, and this is a very small thing, but for many of you, you will see it's something that we repeat all the time, and we don't like to repeat action all the time. So I'm going to import my 3 sequences here, and I am in Media Hub. And I guess the first thing you want to do after importing these is to open these, right? And to do so, you needed in the past to go in Timeline tab, and then you are able to open the sequence. So we've added a way to open the sequences, which brings you to the Open tab. So again, the Timeline tab. So again, it's a small thing, but when you work with the application and you import things and then you need to change tab, this is not fun. So we try to accelerate workflow or improve, in fact, the workflow. So this is something we've done. So we have our sequences here. There was a question related to shot name. So here I have multiple shots, and if I had to look with the info box, as you can see, I have shot name 1, 2, 3, and 4. And in Conform, we've added a new option to keep the shot name. So that means when I'm going to link these things, my sequences will contain the right shot name because my source clips contain shot name. So you have an option. If you don't want that, just need to disable. And same thing with the keep clip name, which in fact will keep the clip name of the source, or will use the name, the segment name from the conform that you're getting from your AF or XML, right? So that's something, again, it's a small thing, but if you don't have to recreate the shot naming convention, everybody's happy. So I have 3 sequences here. And there was a conversation some time ago in Logik about the order of the sequences in relationship to the tab, in relationship to the desktop here. So here I have my sequence 1, I have my sequence 2, and probably I want to link my media. So let me just link. I went a bit fast. Yes, thank you. So let's go back to my real view. So I have edit 1, 2, and 3, which is the same organization. And sorry about that. I have 1, 3, and 2. Well, probably it would be better to have, and I have 1, 3, and 2 here. Maybe I want to work with 1, 2, 3. So if I were to move that just like this, I have 1, 2, 3. I have 1, 2, 3, and I have 1, 2, and 3 here. So the organization follows between timeline tabs, the desktop, and the media library, which many people were confused in the past because they were moving and then they were expecting that to happen, but that now it's happening as you expect. So that's why it's important that you guys and us communicate on Logik about these things that might drive you crazy, because sometimes a small thing can change dramatically your workflow in good or bad. Something also that we've added, because everybody likes to have this info box right on the various parts, so we've added that to the timeline tab. So now you know what the sequence is about when you do that, which is great. And very often you want to quickly export a sequence. So if you were to right-click on the tab, you have the Export Current Sequence shortcut, which brings you to Media Hub that you can export. So again, when you work fast, sometimes you want to be able to have these small shortcuts, and this is interesting. Something that our friend Sinan asked for some time ago that has made the cut for 2025 is the ability to quickly jump, in fact, to top or bottom. So if you were to press Control Alt down and up, so I'm just going to move here, that's going to be more interesting. Control Alt up, Control Alt down, go to the bottom or the top track in your sequence. So again, when you work with 55 tracks in your timeline, being able to have this just for you, Sinan, just for you, because you made the trip from Norway to Las Vegas. So you can of course reassign the key if you don't like the keyboard mapping. So that's something that you can do with this. Let's go back to the source tab, so source sequence tab. So there's a love and hate relationship for this tab. And very often people say if they don't have a need for editorial from source to record, well, they want to get rid of it, right? So we've changed a bit the workflow in 2025 release to ease, in fact, workflow. So as you can see, there's an X here. So if I don't want the source tab, well, I can close it. And that means I only have my sequence here. So I'm just going to reopen sequence 3. That's good. So now I only have my sequence. I don't have the source tab. Of course, don't panic. If somebody by mistake, or if you by mistake press the X, just have to click on the source, double click, and then you're going to be able to bring that back, just like I did, right? But we have some preferences for this. If we were to go into the preferences in timeline, so we have multiple behavior that you can select. And by default, the option is can be closed. So that means if you were to single click or double click on the source, a source clip, we would show either the source clip or the source timeline. But if you don't want if you don't want to have the source timeline, you can close it. You can say always show it, which means I cannot close it. And you can always have also never show, meaning that you will never see the source timeline. So again, you can customize your workflow in Flame based on how you use the source sequence, which I think is a good option. Not everybody uses Flame the same way, right? So we give you a tool to customize your application, your finishing.
Does that say directed by Grant K?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah, it has been directed by Grant K. Yes.
I didn't want to derail but that's I've been looking at
this long time ago, in 2014.
10 years. I had
yes,
no idea.
Absolutely. Yes. a great production. Yes. What would be a Flame demo, in fact, without IP couple, right? I mean,
exactly.
It would be sad. Connected conform. So I've shown you, in fact, the keep shot name in conform. So I can show it to you again. It's here, keep shot name, meaning that we're going to keep the shot name when we link the media. And our friend Tim Farrell, which is in fact with us today, asked something. So I'm just going to create a shot sequence. Yeah, good have segment. And I'm going to show you a nice feature related to duplicate segment connection. So when we duplicate segment connection in the connected conform, what's going to happen is all more data because we duplicate the segment and we keep the connection with the new one. But one use case that Tim had is, what about if I don't want to affect all my sequences? And if I only want to affect, in fact, my open sequences? This is something we've added. So that means if you don't want to affect a sequence, close it first, and then you're going to be able to apply the duplicate connect segment, and then it won't show up in the sequences that have been closed, which is, again, a good thing if you are managing. And he has Tim showed us, in fact, in his video for the reverse user group event some time ago, his use cases. And it was interesting. So we said, that's good, let's do it. And it has made the cut for the 2023. So that's why it's important either to explain us your use cases, your workflow, or open Flame feedback with that kind of information. So that way we can go and investigate. So that's what, and this is cool because it brings community closer to the product. And it's always fun to discuss workflow. Yeah, so I'm sure, Jeff, you're going to be able to use it and have a lot of fun with this thing. So these are most of the timeline enhancements. So have a look at the what's new with 2025 release, and you're going to be able to use them and comment, and I'm sure move your workflow better. Last thing are some of the enhancements we've done to batch. So when you're going to jump into the clamp node, you're going to see the user interface has been changed, right? So you won't recognize it, but I'm sure the options are quite straightforward anyway. So we rename the button and we've put the right numeric fields. So that's one thing that we've done with the clamp node. Color warper, again, something for Sinan. Sinan was looking for the ability, in fact, to have proportional blur. So that's part of it. We also map keyboard shortcuts 2, 3, and 4 for the selective, the matte, and the result view. These are also available on the control panel, the tangent panels. They are not mapped, but they are not assigned, in fact, but you can map them to keys if you want to. So if you are an heavy color warper user, well, you can do that from the tangent mapper. And last but not least, if we were to go to all my collection of keyers, I don't know if you are like me, but I collect keyers. So we have a lot of keyers in Flame, and so we have added, in fact, new output modes. So as you've seen in lens distortion and in grain, match grain, we have new ways. In fact, we have new output sockets for these tools. So we revisited our two tools, and for all the keyers now we have two outputs. So we have the outmat and the inverted outmat. So you have the option here based on what you want to provide to the next tool in your pipeline. You have the option, instead of adding another node to do that, it's directly part of every keyer node in Flame. And that's a 2025 release.
It's excellent. You know, Stephane, first of all, wait. Congratulations on another amazing release. I want to see if I can do good. No, that's not the right button. I can go here. Oh man, this is just going brilliantly. Clearly I haven't set enough presets here. Here we go. I wanted to show everybody, this is on the forum. It's something that Fred put. It's just a list of all of the Flame feedback requests that were implemented, including the ones like we just saw, the ability to reorder the sequence tabs and the color warper proportional button for blur. So congratulations to the dev team, and thank you everybody for taking the time to go to Flame Feedback to log your feature requests. And it really is a special day when your feature requests show up.
Absolutely, and this is interesting because when you provide a given feature, if you could give us some context, right, some challenges you have, that way we can either find already existing ways to do what you are looking for, or in fact discuss with other users based on what you're doing. And sometimes by giving us this context, we can connect dots to other tools sometimes. So if you're asking for something, sometimes another similar tool might also require a same change, or maybe a change of workflow. And I'll always go back to this example, but the connected conform, in fact, the workflow came up with people who were looking for a kind of a turbo swap shot. So, I want to be able to turbo swap shot because I always have these new renders from 3D, and then we were able to extrapolate and then build for, I think, 5 or 6 releases capabilities in our product based on a better understanding of the new market condition when you use these tools.
Totally. Yeah, it's always better to explain the problem you're having as opposed to, I'm sure you appreciate hearing the suggestion to the solution of the problem, but you're right, in order to make those connections and then possibly see either a quicker benefit or a solution because there's already an answer in the software, or implementing a solution that can tie in other tools and other capabilities.
Absolutely. This is interesting, and it helps us, in fact, to model the new features or the new workflows, because a collection of things that you cannot do can become a brand new workflow, like Connected Conform, in fact, has done in the past.
Sweet. Well, thank you, Stephane. I appreciate it.
Thanks to you.
Thank you for coming on. Congratulations on another great release. And I'll see you over on Zoom in a few minutes for our patrons chat. And
Good.
You can give my best to everybody, up at.
Do I have the link somewhere to connect to the Zoom?
The first thing that I am going to do after I end the show is send you the link so that you can.
Thank you very much. I might be a little bit late.
One more thing. It's just one more thing that I forgot to cross off my list.
No stress.
But I'll tell you something. Logik Life 135 is going to be like a well-oiled machine. I can't wait.
Great.
All right. Thank you so much, Stephane.
Thanks for joining.
We'll see you in a minute. All right. All right, friends. I've got a couple of prizes to give away here. The first thing I need to do is see, is this going to work? There I am. Hello. Hey. We're going to do some Logik Life prizes. I have a 1-month subscription to Logik Academy Pro to give away. So let's shuffle this list up here. Everybody who signed up today. And we'll spin that around. Yeah, and then the winner's going to be Dirk Green. Congratulations, Dirk. And then I have a 1-year license of optics from our friends at Boris Effects. Look at this. Oh, my goodness. Huh? And that's going to Kevin Quinlan. Good to see you today, Kevin. Thank you. All right, that's going to do it for prizes. Let me close out the show here by going back to our slideshow, and we'll see if these buttons on the Stream Deck actually do their thing. Got some Logik Live announcements to make, or some shows we have scheduled. This is not a complete list, but I did want to get these on everybody's radar. We're still working out some dates for May, but Sunday, June 2nd, we're going to be doing something called Preferences, Presets, and Hotkeys with Brian Bailey. And that's going to be hosted by our friend Jeff Kyle. And on Sunday, June 23rd, we're going to have our friends from LucidLink on. They certainly have a lot to talk about. They had a rough week, but we're going to have them on, and we're going to do some kind of live demonstration of myself, and it will probably rope Randy in. But it'll be Randy. By the way, I see you in the chat. I'm letting you now know right now. I'm roping you in. But we're going to do a kind of a live demonstration using LucidLink and get all your questions answered for that. If you haven't already signed up for the forum, please do at forum.logik.tv. It's where all the fun's happening. And be sure to also join the conversation on the Logik Discord for real-time chat and some screen sharing and just a lot of great community stuff. I want to thank our friend Amanda. We have a new episode of the Logik podcast out with her interview with Bob Morey, so definitely check that out in your podcatching app of choice. Randy McEntee, getting my hair did. We should totally have a remote camera on that one. We are over 2,200 subscribers on the Logik YouTube channel. If you haven't already smashed that like and subscribe button, please do. Tell your friends and tell your friends' friends. Again, want to thank all of our patrons on Patreon. We could not do what we do here at Logik Live, on the forum, at the live events. None of it would be possible without the support of our patrons. So thank you so much for everything that you do for the community. Be sure to check out the Logik merch store. I brought one of those notebooks with me to NAB, and it was a huge success. If you're looking for anything from Boris Effects, you can save 15% with one of our affiliate links, and you can find those at logik.tv/Boris Effects. And of course, want to thank our friends at Looper. If you'd like to get 1 month of their Plus plan for free, head on over to tinyurl.com/looper-logic. It's a fantastic tool for any kind of live session you need to do with your clients and friends. That's going to do it for us this week. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Stephane. We will see you all next time. Have a great week, everybody. And hey, there's another slide about Looper. Have a great week, everybody. I'll see you next time. Take care.